Clayton, this is a really big moment. Everyone has really become so endeared to Sonny and Butch. What did this tell us about what went wrong, and will this ever happen again?
Well, Jackie, it's funny. I was thinking, too, the one thing that I have as a takeaway is just it's about Sonny and Butch and just their endurance and their patience and their grace. And it's something that I think back on. I think I admire that. I'm sure a lot of Americans admire that and people around the world. And probably you, like me, I get upset when I'm 3 hours delayed at the airport and they've been there since June. So it's a very different thing to think how long that they've been up there and everything that they've been through. But they've had that poise throughout. I think what we've learned, too, is that space really can still throw us curveballs, but that we have gotten to the point where we have flexibility and adaptability, that we can still do human space flight safely and do that at scale. And that's a lot of credit to NASA on the approach that they've taken to get us here, and then also to SpaceX on whose technology we really relied on to make this happen.
How do you think about the next steps moving forward when it comes to the Starliner? What do you think is the future from here?
Well, there's still a lot of things that we don't know. We do know that Boeing has said they want to stay in the space game. It's less clear on what happens next for Starliner specifically. That will depend a lot on what NASA decides with Boeing about certifying that capsule to fly astronauts again into space. So we don't really know how long that would take. But if we look to the horizon, just with the International Space Station, we're planning for it to deorbit in 2030. So that's less than 5 years away. So there's really only a few more opportunities, really, in the grand scheme to bring astronauts to that station, and that window is quickly closing.
There's been a lot going on in the space field as of late, and I think it has many people wondering, are we in a new space race of some kind? How does the U.S. stack up with what we're doing in the field versus other countries?
It's really hard to not think about China and all their achievements in space. Right now, there's 7 astronauts and cosmonauts on the International Space Station.
Hold that thought for a moment here, because we want to bring our audience some live images of President Trump, who is greeting the Prime Minister of Ireland. The two men are about to take part in a bilateral meeting at the Oval Office. Now, we will bring you those headlines as they come in. And you could also check for updates on Live Go on your Bloomberg terminal. Now, Jackie, back to you.
Talk to us more about how China is really getting to the space race.
Yeah, there's 3 Chinese astronauts on their space station, Tiangong 3, right now, as we speak. So they've really made space look routine in a lot of ways that America has also been able to do. They're also eyeing the moon. They want to land Chinese astronauts on the moon by 2030. So is NASA. I think it's hard to avoid the notion that this is a space race, maybe a moon race 2.0. The United States is still the undeniable space power, lead space power in the world, but China is definitely nipping at our heels.
Let's talk about who's making us the space power. We hear a lot about SpaceX, but over in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of contenders really coming into the fore as well. What are you seeing in terms of concentration of who's taking us to the next level?
SpaceX is the main player right now when it comes to launch, when it comes to broadband from low Earth orbit, when it comes to a lot of the things that we rely on to get people and cargo to the space station. But there are a lot of other companies that are innovating in Silicon Valley and around the country. You have companies in Pittsburgh and Texas and Florida. They're trying to catch up and come up with new ways to do space, to do it cheaper, to do it more efficiently, to mine asteroids even. So there are a lot of up-and-comers that really will challenge SpaceX's dominance, and it will be their game to lose, though, over time, because there's a lot of smart people, though, right behind them.
Let's talk a little bit about who's behind SpaceX, because Elon Musk has been making waves here in Washington for other reasons. But one of the areas that he's poised to potentially benefit from are his relationships in Washington, SpaceX potentially getting more contracts. Does his politics detract in any way from the progress that SpaceX can make, or does it really operate independently of that?
SpaceX has led the way for what we call commercial space today, and it has taken a number of years for them to get to where they are. This isn't something that just happened with President Trump's inauguration in January. This has been a long trend where NASA, the Department of Defense, and other customers, both commercially and internationally, have really grown to depend on SpaceX for launch and then now for broadband from space. So these are areas that have been trending in that direction for a long time. Those business opportunities that exist in space, SpaceX built over the last few years, probably started around 2008. So it's not something new, and they're just really taking advantage of all of that time and effort that they put into this for almost 7 to 8 years at this point.